Good evening and welcome to the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station. I'm your host, Roman. We have a great show planned for you today. But first, the forecast from our IntellectualRadio.com Weather Center. Today, sunny, high 71 degrees. Tonight, clear and chilly, low 58 degrees. Tuesday, pleasant, high 74 degrees. Tomorrow night, cloudy, a little bit warm, high 61 degrees. Wednesday, cloudy, cool, with a few showers and thunderstorms, high 66 degrees. Thursday, cloudy during the morning hours that will give way to some sunny conditions. Cooler though, high 64 degrees. Friday, partly sunny, high 69 degrees. Over the weekend, Saturday, 69 degrees again, cloudy with some showers, warm. Sunday, possible thunderstorms, 69 degrees again. The Drive at 5 is also part of the new Monday night lineup, starting with a new show called Becoming Dateable at 11 a.m. Deals Business at 12 p.m., The Great Entrepreneurs at 6 p.m., New Black Leadership at 7 p.m., Dreammakers 365 at 8 p.m., and 9 p.m. Pools of Rom. Also, the Drive at 5 is also part of the fabulous 5 at 5 only on intellectualradio.com. The Drive at 5 is also sponsored by Joshua Flynn and Associates. Get your insurance today. Tonight, my guest is a Chicago icon who have graced us with his talent, providing a way for local recording artists to have a voice throughout the city and the airwaves, not just locally, but nationally. George's Music Room has been a staple on the Chicago West Side for decades, and now he is here to tell us about his new venture. Please give a Drive at 5 welcome to the one and the only legendary entrepreneur, George Daniels. Welcome to the Drive, sir.
Well, thank you for having me.
Please give intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station your background.
Oh, well, that's a long story, but I was born in the Bronx, New York. My mother worked up until the last half an hour before I was born in my parents' first restaurant. By the time I was like 3 or 4, so they had a number of restaurants in the Bronx and Harlem. Time went on. My first schools were in Queens, then Jackson Heights. Eventually, I wound up going to Texas when I was starting seventh grade to live with my grandmother who owned Mama Cafe. The house was connected to the cafe. I used to have to get up in the morning to open the cafe before I went to school. Uh, in essence, that's kind of the foundation of me being an entrepreneur, if you will. It's something you don't go to school for to open up a neighborhood store. Uh, Grandmother, she got ill, and I wound up coming to Chicago to live with my brother, who was a medical student at the time. He was going to school to be a dentist, Dr. Max Newsom. He's retired now, but he practiced at 79th and Carpenter for close to 40 some odd years. And actually, they named the street after him, Dr. Max Newsom Way. And so he was a great influence. He became my guardian from eighth grade through high school. And his wife, Charlotte, I tell you, they were more like parents rather than brother and sister-in-law. And so that's part of my foundation. That's the crust of it. Eventually, my dad wound up coming to Chicago. He opened up some restaurants on 47th Street, Mr. D's Corned Beef House, and we had Mr. D's Steakhouse, actually on the corner of Wabash and 47th in the Rosenwald that's been restored. That's where we had the steakhouse right there. And so one thing led to another. I wound up working for a black distributor, as they called it in those days, a one-stop, like Barney's and Joe's and Fletcher's and so on and so forth. And this was One Stop Records Incorporated. And he was located in the 1700 block of South Michigan Avenue. He was like one of the largest black distributors or one-stops in the country. He had 5 one-stop locations, as well as a 20-store chain called Mooseville Records. We also had a one-stop in Gary. I became one of his employees, and he gave me a lot of responsibility. Again, with that background of understanding the responsibility it takes to run a store, everything that you have to do. And so that was the beginning. That was, I'd say, like 1967 or so, 66, 67, because I missed the segment. I worked at Chess Records. I was Etta James' driver when I was like 17, 18 years old.
You know, I've read that,
Hmm.
and you met incredible people such as Etta James,
Yeah.
Muddy Waters,
Hmm.
Michael Jackson,
Yeah.
the Dells, the Temptation, and others while working at Chase Records.
It was
Chess
Chess
Records, I'm
Records.
sorry,
Yeah.
Chess Records. What was it like meeting with them and talking with them while you were at Chess Records?
Well, these were everyday people. Many of these artists had day jobs too. It's not like today's recording artists who they're 100% into their entertainment. Now that you have digital and what have you, but in those days, they were everyday folks. People didn't have bodyguards. I would imagine one of the first groups to really have bodyguards was the Jackson Five. Once Michael and them really blew up, but they were everyday folks, man. You have to remember. Well, you may not remember, but I suggest to our listeners to go on YouTube and pull up this documentary that was done by WTTW Public Broadcasting some years ago, and it's called Record Row. Record Row, Chicago. You'll see it on YouTube. On Michigan Avenue from 12th Street, Roosevelt Road to 22nd Street. That's 10 blocks. In those 10 blocks, there were more record labels than any city in the world. Chess Records, Scepter Records, Decca Records, Brunswick Records, VJ Records. And see, VJ Records, actually, it was a black couple that owned it, Vivian and James, and they were from Gary, Indiana. And the roster of artists that they had was incredible, and people didn't know it was black owned. And a guy named Ewart Abner, who became even more famous later on when he worked at Motown. But they had all these pop acts, white acts, if you will, and nobody really knew it was a black-owned record label. So they were negotiating with Capitol Records in London to get this other artist that they wanted. And so the Capitol said, "Okay, we'll sell you this act, this artist, but you have to take this group because we don't know what to do with them at this point." That was the Beatles. So the Beatles, the first label they were ever on in America was a black-owned label, VJ Records.
A lot of people don't know that.
That's why I said it. 1451 South Michigan Avenue. That's where
so
the
the,
building was.
so the Beatles really got their start here.
No,
I mean,
well,
really.
the Beatles were from Liverpool,
Mhm.
London, UK. The first label they were on, they did an acetate recording, but they never were distributed by VJ. They wound up going back to Capitol. But the fact that their first label in America was a black-owned label, that's what's unique and the untold story about it. But you'll see it on that documentary. There's like 5, 10 minute episodes, but it did air on WTTW back in the day.
You said people like Muddy Waters,
Hmm.
Etta James. They had the Dells. They
Yeah.
had regular jobs. What jobs? They were
Well,
like comic book.
Muddy Waters worked at U.S. Steel. He worked at the steel mill. I mean, for example, the Jackson Five, their father Joe. Joe worked at U.S. Steel Gary Works. The first label they were on was called Steel Town Records, and forget his name. He's still alive too, and he probably still has the first original recordings. But their first record was I'm a Big Boy Now." Gordon Keith, that's the guy's name that started that label that recorded the Jackson Five. And see, so you have, I tell you, in that 10 block area. Once you look at that documentary, you're not gonna believe all of the artists. I mean, from the Shylocks, Jackie Wilson, Curtis Mayfield, Sam Cooke, they all started their careers in that 10 block area, in some one location or the other. The musicians, just like you say, Earth, Wind and Fire. Actually, the concept came from Chess Records. Maurice White used to be Ramsey Lewis's drummer. And when him and Charles Stephanie, who was a producer at Chess, put their heads together and they came up with the concept of Earth, Wind, and Fire.
A lot of people don't know what the earth, the wind, and the fire concept comes. Can you help some people out?
Well, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. Earth, Wind, and Fire. I mean, it's all energy driven.
So the wind is the horns, right?
I would imagine. I mean, now I'm not going to talk like a member of Earth, Wind, and Fire. See, so, but I was just giving you a synopsis of all of the creativity that came not just from chess. I mean, the bass player with Earth, Wind, and Fire, Maurice White's brother, Verdine, he was taught by a guy named Louis Satterfield. Louis Satterfield was a studio musician at chess, but he also got around to a bunch of other places. But in those days, studio musicians were under contract. So if you were a studio musician at chess, you couldn't go down the street at Decca Records or VJ Records and record because you were under contract. But Louis Satterfield, um, it's not documented, but it's a fact that he's the guy that kind of invented the running bass. And back in the days of the old recordings, the bass player just boom, boom, boom. It was a basic bottom beat that they used, but never a running bass until one hit record by the Four Tops. I can't help myself. Doom, boom, doom, 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 doom. That was Louis Satterfield. He slipped up to Detroit and recorded that with the Four Tops.
Oh,
And
wow.
see, so you had so much musicianship. And see, for me, how I wound up there, I graduated from Hirsch in 1964. So I was out hanging around and I met a young lady. We started dating. She had one more year at Hyde Park High School. And I took her to the prom, what have you. I was going to Luke Junior College at that time, which is now Harold Washington. And I was working at Montgomery Ward on Chicago Avenue, right by the river there. And we started dating, and she had a part time job at Chess Records. She was a receptionist and she sang background. So that's how I wound up at Chess Records, involved in the music because of my girlfriend. And she went on to become quite famous herself, and she passed at a very young age in 1979, July 12th to be exact. That was Minnie Riperton. So that's how I wound up getting involved in the music business in the beginning, period. It was her.
There is so much history you have with R&B and the hip hop community.
Mhm.
Which artist made an impact on you personally that you have seen from the start and now?
Tons of them. I mean, just what a week or so ago at the Chicago Theater, you had H Town, you had Shy, you had High Five, you had Genuine. Uh, all of these groups, they came to my store when they were 16, 17. These artists are now in their late 40s, some in their 50s. And so I knew them all. I mean, Jay Z, when he first came to my store, it was like 1993. Tupac, I mean, Notorious B.I.G., they all came to my store. They were teenagers. Queen Latifah, I mean, my goodness, she was an amazing young lady. Mary J., when she came, when she was literally just like a little thug, she wound up, smooth out you know,
What did
well,
you say to Queen Latifah?
nothing is what they said to me. They were excited to come to the store for one thing, but these were young people that really didn't know the business. They were all controlled by the industry. See, when you look at the beginning of rap, which turned into hip hop, and hip hop became a lifestyle, not just a style of music, rap was the music that had messages. If you go back to many of those first rap records, they were told, when you had Public Enemy, and you had all you remember the video, which I wish some young people would pull it up every now and then, Self Destruction. When you had Queen Latifah, you had MC Light, Big Daddy Kane, Heavy D. They were all in this video. It was an amazing thing, and they were talking about destruction in our neighborhoods. And that record actually was discontinued. They even took the video off television
Why it was discontinued?
because it was too positive. And the fact of the matter is, like, who owned that record label? And it was Jive Records, and a guy named uh, uh, Carl. No, what is it? His name will pop in my head in a minute, but he was South African, and he wasn't that interested in positive images and messages and what have you. And that was a strong message. And if they will revive it today, and you listen to the music of yesterday versus what I call noise today, because You can't even distinguish who the artists are today. It's all about a beat. It's all about auto tunes. It's all about a cute little package. I don't care what nationality now. They got to be young and cute. You see these little Asian boys, was it BTS? It's amazing. But they're no different than years ago. There was a group called Menudo from Mexico, these Mexican kids. And they replace them when they aged out, they get another young kid put in there. And see, though, that's what music is today. And they market it to 12 to 27. And now you have young people that, creating a following on the internet. They have their pages, and this is what A&R people are doing. There was a time years ago I could call it L.A. Reid. I can call, Babyface, and hey, know so and so, so and so. I would send them tapes and what have you of artists that I knew. Not anymore. That all has changed. Now these artists are creating a following, no matter what the music is. There's nobody putting any checks and balances on it. There's no filters, and it's bad. And we sitting around raising all this hell about we need jobs. What are we going to do? And so and so. Look, a work ethic that comes from childhood. That comes from you seeing it. I would dare the system to put body cams on our children and let's see what they have to see on the way to and from school. And then you'll wonder why. When you're 5 or 6 years old and your brother's 11 or 12 and the music they're listening to, you're listening to it too. And the messages, it's incredible. It's incredible. And everybody's wondering, well, why are they so violent? Why shouldn't they be? Every video game, I mean, you go back to Grand Theft Auto and what have you, everything is violent. Look at the UFC boxing. That's not boxing. That's Mortal Kombat, man. And our children are learning how to conduct themselves that way. And we have that dude in the White House. He's straight up bully, and so he's just giving a passport to anybody from that era, from any era. Me and him are the same age, and I grew up in Queens, and he did too. But there was a difference: the white side and the black side. But we had different values, and the values that are being displayed nowadays extremely dangerous. When you have popular shows like Love and Hip Hop and all these other quote so-called reality shows that have writers, you know, that's dangerous.
Your love of music has
Mhm.
expanded from the blues to R&B and hip hop.
Yeah.
That relates to your background because of the racism you endured in the South.
Well, I'm not going to say I endured it. I was exposed to it. It's something, coming from New York City going to Texas. I had never gone to an all black school until I went to Houston in Fifth Ward.
But you fell in love with Southern music. Explain that to us.
Uh, no, well, that's what someone wrote. uh, you exposed to music because it's not like I played trumpet in high school, but it wasn't like I fell in love with the music and how I wound up in the music business. No, I initially wound up and I explained it when I met Minnie. That's why I got exposed to the manufacturing and recording of music. And when I wound up being her, when our separate ways a few years later, I wound up working for that distributor, One Stop Records. And so I was managing stores for him. And then one day, one of the stores he had opened, he wanted to close it. And I said, hey, can I get the store? He said, well, go talk to the landlord. This was December 12th, 1969, 70. And I convinced the landlord to give me 90 days credit on the rent. And that was George's Music Room, December 12th, 1969. I brought my record player from home. That's how I wound up with the store. Now, I did very well because my relationship to the industry came from the initial relationship with Chess Records in driving Etta James. Then I drove nationally, like the movie Cadillac Records with Beyonce, which was about Etta James. Well, I wound up driving all around the country with an artist. His name was Billy Stewart. We were in a big Fleetwood Cadillac, me, him, and his girlfriend. The band was in a station wagon like sardines, pulling a U-Haul with the instruments. And in those days, every artist who was stage worthy had their own rhythm section. And that's how you traveled. And so here in Chicago, you had the Regal Theater. The original Regal was on 47th and King Drive, where Harold Washington Cultural Center is. That was Terry's department store. Next to Terry's was the original Regal, and next to the Regal was the Savoy Ballroom. Just like the Grand Ballroom on 63rd and Cottage, next to the Grand Ballroom on Cottage, there used to be the Tivoli Theater. And those theaters used to do 5 shows a day. It'd be 6, 7 acts on a show. And so you had the Regal here in Chicago. In Detroit, you had the Fox Theater. In New York, you had the Apollo. In Philadelphia, you had the Uptown Theater. And in DC, you had the Howard Theater. That's how you traveled back in those days. It wasn't tour buses and what have you. And that's how we did it. And see, there were no bodyguards and all those things. And most of the artists carried their own pistol. If they was in trouble, But that's how it was. And so I got to learn and understand what it was like to be on the road. Sleeping in hotels, eating hotel food, and so on and so forth. For me, it was like running away to the circus. I was so young, and I was with everybody was grown, and so I understood what it was like. And so years later, well, fast forward, opening George's Music Room, it didn't start popping until the '90s. And mind you, I opened in '69. My
Why
story,
it took so long? A lot of people think it was like an overnight success.
no, they don't. Where did they get that from? This is not possible. Nothing's overnight, and neither was my career or anybody else's. It takes time. I mean, it's not like the music business. They were a one-hit wonder. We had many of those back in the day. But the income that these artists make today versus yesterday is, oh God, light years, so much more today than yesterday. But then again, the cost of living, wasn't that expensive. When I bought my first car, like my 1970 Delta 88, that was like maybe $6,000. I got a '73 Delta 8 convertible. I remember I paid 7,500 for that. At RL, no, yeah, no, that was Al Johnson Oldsmobile. Well, he got the Cadillac dealership, black operators. But no, it's all a part of a journey. It's just like if a doctor comes right out of medical school, I wouldn't want him operating on me. He may have gone to school, but he has no experience, and so that's why they have them do what they call intern. So it's a process. Everything that you do, in growing up, it's a process. And so I started George's Music Room with the whole idea of wanting to be in business for myself. I learned and I made all the mistakes at the people that I worked for. So the only thing I lacked was the investment money. But I had that up here. I had that with brain power. So my mistakes were so limited, so I didn't need that much money. And I learned how to do and work what they call cash flow. I had no money in the bank and everything was cash.
Uh,
I didn't start taking credit cards till maybe in the late '80s. And that's how you do it. That's how you did it.
You were considered a pioneer in the black music industry because every artist from every genre
Mhm.
would stop by your music store. How you maintain that respect from local and national artists?
Well, you
They
have to.
they they can't stop in Chicago unless they go to George's Music Room.
Well, again, the process that I went through was different from others. My relationship to the industry was not just from the standpoint that's George with the record shop. I participated in all the trade organizations from Jack the Rapper to BRE, Urban Network. Here in Chicago, we had the NBPC, National Black Programmers. And in Chicago, we had the Midwest Radio and So these are conferences all around the country. So each year I participate in these. Now this goes back into the '80s because I couldn't afford to do that in the '70s. And so I got to know these artists when they were first starting. And so, you build a camaraderie. Hey, when I come to Chicago, I'm gonna come by your place. I sat on panels, and then at one point, I I became I joined an organization called NARM, National Association of Recording Merchandisers. This is the big white organization, and this was the big chains and Target department stores and all this. And I tried to encourage some of my fellow black retailers to join. They said, "Man, that's for the big guys. They got multiple stores." I said, "Well, hey, you learn from them as well." I go in and sit in the room with a guy that got 1,000 stores. Heck, I just act like one of the stores. So I get that information because the key is information, knowledge. That's what it turns to. And so that's what I did, what my competition wasn't doing, wasn't willing to do.
You met the Temptations.
Yeah.
What was it like? A lot of people don't get the original Temptation, all the originals, meeting
Well,
them.
they were all, you know, we were around the same age anyway. But you have to listen to the music. When you look at the Temptations, you look at the Four Tops, you look at Smoke and the Miracles, you look at all of those groups from that one label out of Detroit called Motown. All of those artists came out the projects there too. And they had a thing back in those days in the music business called artist development. And if you ever listen to Smokey or the Tempt, all of them were quite articulate. Diana Ross and the Supremes, Martha and the Vandellas, Gladys Knight and the Pips, and not one of those groups sound alike. And the head of that company was Barry Gordy. And he saw to it that they got their education. They don't have that nowadays. You have such ignorance in the business nowadays because there's nobody teaching you. You know, when you sign a kid and you take a young man, become his manager, you're like his parent. You can't just let him do what the hell he wants to do because he wants to do it. You got to guide him. And look at all of those groups came out of that one company. But we had great companies here as well. But I had to use that as an example. The Temptations, no different than the Four Tops, no different than Smoking the Miracles. They were a bunch of young kids out of the projects. And I was a kid too. And see, so it's a thing. People tend to put people on a pedestal. When Destiny's Child first came to my store, they were 17 years old. Beyonce and whatever. I know her dad and her mom. They were kids. And so I treated them in such a way that they never forgot. I would, man, but look, we do barbecues and everything at the store because I remembered how it was being in those hotels and being on the road, and everybody else is in charge but you. And so when they came to my store, I made sure they were treated special. The Edna's restaurant, God rest her soul, on the west side, I used to get all the vegetables from her, the greens and the beans and all that stuff. And then I would go to Mario's Meats over on Madison, and I had a huge barbecue pit, and we'd be out there barbecuing. So when they got there, they never wanted to leave because they wouldn't get no food like that any place,
I
especially
heard
at
you
a store.
get down on the grill. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
What is your favorite? Ribs? What?
No, no, not necessarily. Well, seafood. I'm a seafood guy. I've slowed down a lot of red meat, but
Mm.
yeah, yeah. But Southern cooking is hard to find it like it used to be in our restaurants, and fine dining in the black community now is McDonald's. Because everything is brown. You don't see, man, back in the day, our diet as black people was the healthiest diet in America. All of the different things that we ate, it was the least expensive types of food, all of the beans and the greens and what have you, but they were the healthiest.
At the peak of George's Music Room, you decided to shut down the West Side location and go to Midway Airport and now Navy Pier. Tell us
No,
about those moves
okay.
that you would consider coming back to the West Side where
It,
your
it
legacy
it
began.
is totally different than what it was when I started. When I opened my store, there were a bunch of small businesses all up and down the street, across the street from me as well. You had Drexler's Drugs, you had Holland's Hamburgers, you had John's Restaurant. Actually, John's wife was Quincy Jones' aunt. You had the barbershops, beauty salons, and what have you. It's desolate over there. And first of all, I didn't shut down George's to go to the airport. That's right. What it was in 1999, I had a visitor come, my alderman. He surprised me with a visitor from City Hall, Mayor Daley. He was having a peace march on Roosevelt, and he wanted to end it in front of my store and do a news conference. Well, they surprised me with a sign on the street for my 30 years of being in business at that time. And so we were out front, giving speeches and what have you. And he said, "Come on, let's see the store." Mayor Daley comes in, he looks around at the store, and he said, "I got an idea for you." Nothing of it, and nothing was said. And then 3 months later, I get a phone call that the mayor wanted to see me at City Hall. So I go down and I walk in. They say, "Mr. Daniels, have a seat." And I'm wondering, where's everybody else at? And it's at 1 o'clock, straight up. Mayor Daley walks. I say, "Hey, George, come on back." Him and I sat for 3 hours, just kicking it. And near the end, he said, "You tell me what you want, and I'll tell you what I want." I said, well, I had nothing in mind that I wanted, but you know, he said, well, I'll tell you what I want. I like your store. I'm getting ready to remodel Midway Airport, and I'd like George's Music Room to be in Midway. That's how I got in Midway Airport. Him and him alone. And I still have my store on Roosevelt. I never closed it. I didn't close that till once the digital age came in. I mean, all the stores closed. And then it was Rom that screwed me out of my store at Midway when he cut a deal with another company that I wasn't included. And so that's how I lost my store at Midway. Then I went to Navy Pier, and my time was so short there. It wasn't even worth the investment that I made to go in there because they shut down for the remodeling of Navy Pier right after I got in there. So and at that time I was really desperate. I didn't know what the heck I was going to do. So actually, George's Music Room, the store, is in storage. I have everything. I have everything. I have a whole store in storage like that. And so while pondering and not trying to figure out what I'm going to do, some investors who know the liquor business, they approached me for a licensing branding deal, and that's where George's Beverage Depot came from. And so we plan to open another location, but the one we have at 55th, right off the Dan Ryan in that plaza. But that's how George's Beverage Depot came about. And with that George's Beverage Depot, it's only available at my location, but we have George Daniels Ultra Premium Vodka that we eventually will have distribution on that as well. But it's all part of a partnership deal that people approach me.
So, so tell us a little bit more about your new venture in the beverage industry. Why a beverage depot? Of all things, you're like music, but
Well,
now
you show me where there's another neighborhood record shop still open. Where is it? Do you know one?
no, not really.
Exactly.
But
Well, I'm
people
no
are
different.
going back to vintage.
Yes, but not on a massive level. There's no way in our communities that you're going to spend that kind of money that it costs for a vinyl album. Vinyl is not like it used to be at 3.99 and all that stuff when I first started in business. No, there are only 10 pressing plants in the whole country, and so records are very expensive, and you have to have an audiophile type of a clientele. These are not the people that come in and shop every payday like they used to in the days when you come and buy that 45 or that cassette single and what have you. Now it's all here. It's all on your cell phone. And so it's not logical. It's not economically logical to open up a music store to sell physical product.
Would you consider going digital? Maybe.
You show me where there's a profit margin in it. You show me that. Huh? When I can turn on the music now and get it all free. So where's the profit? I mean, I would love to open my. That's why I still have my stuff. Hopefully, maybe one of your listeners might want to invest in some type of a museum, if you will.
At the old location in
No,
Portsmouth?
no, 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 no.
No.
I'm not going back over there. And I'm not gonna let them little youngsters kill me over there. And I'm gonna tell it like it is. They know. And if y'all listening over there, y'all know because no, no. I would love to go back over there. I won't even ride past my old store. They vandalized it. Something terrible, man. It
you
hurt
had
my
a
heart.
you, you had a explain the piece that's on the side of your building. You had original artists
Yeah,
from
well, there were murals that we had
yeah.
done by an artist. His name was Design. Design, Puerto Rican young man. He's from North Side. And what happened? One of the record labels they wanted to use one side of my building to do a mural or murals of all of the artists on their label, and they wanted to do it in conjunction with the Chicago Park District and the uh, 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 graffiti artists. And so they came and they did the whole side, the west side of the building. This is before I ever had any type of murals on the building at all. And so it was fun. It was a fun thing. Gave all these young guys, something to do that day. And so it was nice. Took a lot of pictures. And then so I bumped into one of them maybe a couple of months later. And I said, hey, he said, yeah, I'm the guy that did some of the stuff. Oh, I said, oh, how did it all work out? Did they take care of you guys? He said, no. I said, y'all didn't get paid for that? He said, no. I said, oh. And I got his phone number and stuff. And so that's when we started doing the big murals of Michael Jackson and you name what have you. And I got them paid. I got the record labels to pay for. So that's how that started.
When you mention your beverage line, your beverage depot,
Hmm.
you also have a new vodka line out. But what surprised me, along with the legendary Gene Chandler and retired NBA basketball player Mark Aguirre, why more and more African Americans are moving towards the alcohol industry? You're finding out. You have P Diddy, you have other hip
Hmm.
hop artists are moving in now. Now George
Well, I wouldn't
Daniels.
put myself on the same level as them, but it's a market for it. I mean, everybody else is making money off of us, something like that. And so you have many of these artists now who have the funding and the backing uh, to exploit the beverage industry. I mean, I didn't realize there was that many brands of liquor until I wound up being involved with these my partners in the liquor store. I'm a music guy, but these guys know the alcohol business, the beverage business, like I know the music business. So it was a good partnership, and I have a great reputation, and my brand brings people to the store.
What is the location?
It's at 55th Street, 5401 South Wentworth, but the entrance is at 55th, right next to it was like across from the Wendy's, not the Wendy's, across from uh, Checkers, the hamburger place there, and it's a shopping plaza, if you will. And we took 5,000 square feet of the formerly the Walgreens drugstore that was there, and we cut a new entrance that faces 55th Street.
Over the weekend was the recent passing of Bushwick Bill from the Ghetto Boys.
Mm.
Last year, while you were launching your new beverage depot, he was there helping you out, passing out turkeys.
Yeah.
You have a close relationship with Bushwick Bill. Tell us about that and
Well, it
what
just
you.
it goes back to when the Ghetto Boys when they first started. Rap a Lot Records. Every group on that label out of their first in store would always be at George's in Chicago. Jay Prince, who owns and runs Rap a Lot Records, had great relationships with many individuals here in the city, gang related individuals, if you will. And but it was important for him to have all his artists come to George's music room. Again, Rap a Lot Records is from Houston, Texas, Fifth Ward, and again, that's where I went to school as a kid. So there was a relationship there from that. So, but Bushwick and Scarface and Willie D, the Ghetto Boys, they were great guys, just great guys. And Bushwick, a wonderful person, and he surprised me. That was November 20th, a few days before Thanksgiving. I convinced my partners to get me these turkeys. And they looked at me like, "What the hell are you talking about?" I said, I need turkeys. George's is known for holidays handing out turkeys over the years, and I want to do it over here. And so they got me the turkeys, about 400 of them. We got people lined up. It was great. Out of nowhere, here comes Bushwick, pulls up in the car and said, "Hey, Uncle George, I came to help you." And he jumped right in, handing out turkeys with me. And his son was with him, YK. Nice young man, perfect gentleman. And so the friendships go way back. I've seen them on the road. I've been at the conventions and what have you. They perform, but I built a camaraderie with basically all of the artists that I know. I mean, from Diddy to Jay Z. I mean, you name it. I mean, Heavy D, God rest his soul. He was what a great guy. Was just a wonderful person. And see, so the list goes on and on and on. There's so many. I had a chance to spend time with Luther Vandross, another great person. So it's the journey continues, if you will, because I ain't going nowhere. And,
When you look at these
mhm.
artists,
Yeah. Hmm.
you would say what what changed? Like you mentioned the music industry that changed. Some of the artists have changed with the industry, what the industry wants.
Not the veteran artists. I mean, what you have now, you know, it's a beautiful thing. Because me and the groups that were performing a few weeks ago at Chicago Theater, we were laughing because I was telling them, I said, "Wow, isn't it amazing? Who would have thought those songs that you have, you could still make a living off of them today? Because they can't even record, make any new music. Basically, who's going to buy their music? These new artists, the way they saturate the airways, and it's all about your Instagram account. It's all about and the fan base now, the mentality. They don't want to hear anything positive. They've been so programmed and negative. And when you've seen some of these interviews, I forget one of these hip hop artists. This is when um, we were having all these police killings and so on and so forth all around the country. And he was interviewed, and he said, "What do you think about so and so?" So this guy said, "Well, it don't bother me. I got my jewelry, I got my diamonds. I ain't got nothing to do with that." That's their attitude today. It ain't community at all. Listen to if you have time. I tell a lot of grown folks every now and then. I'll watch Music Choice channel 706 and look at the garbage and listen to the lyrics. It's incredible. And any adult that allows their kids to listen to it, and basically these kids, their parents listen to it. And before they had parental advisory stickers on CDs, you remember the parental advisory sticker? I was parental advisory before they even put the stickers on there. I wouldn't let kids buy stuff like that for me. And the parents, I say, hey, tell your parents to come get it. And then the disappointing part, parents would come in, well, hey, George, why can't they go in there? I explain the lyrics, and they say, well, as long as he got his headphones on, I ain't got to listen to it. So that's what you have now. Now you have teachers that need combat pay. It's a shame. It's a shame, and I'm hurt by it. And if I was to open another store that served music, I would not carry. I don't care who they are. I just would not carry it. You might as well sell crack, because that's what this music is doing to our kids, and we're not paying attention to it.
You sound very hurt because music is your passion.
Yes.
And the stuff that you hear on the airwaves that saturate
Hmm.
the airwaves now, you're kind of like it is it's
I know.
heartbreaking.
Well, I know not just heartbreaking. I know the damage it's going to do. Do you realize how many lives we lose? They talk about all this killing. Do you see how these 12, 13, 14-year-old kids are the ones doing the shooting? One of the biggest things that even the aldermen them didn't pay attention to. One of the worst mistakes that Rahm Emanuel made when he first got in office with the new police chief, the one that just ran, for mayor as well, McCarthy. The biggest doggone mistake, and nobody's even mentioning it today. The first move he made was to lock up all the chiefs. Before that happened, we didn't have no killing like that. With those chiefs, the heads of the gangs, the commanders in every district, they knew who the chiefs were. And if somebody did something stupid, hurt a senior citizen, kill somebody, hurt a kid, whatever, the commander would go to the chief and say, hey, you're going to have to give him up. And that's what they would do because the chiefs educated. The chiefs protected those kids in the neighborhood that, knew were going to school or knew that they were in sports and so on and so forth. Now you have a gang on every corner in the neighborhood. You have these kids teaching kids. You don't have any adults in charge of nothing. And then people sitting back, well, we need to bring jobs to the community. Man, we need to reopen those schools and turn them into damn near detention centers because these teachers they should not be required to deal with these kids, man. And their parents are just as bad. And see, so this has gone on so far. What are you going to do? When you have an 8 or 9-year-old kid and you watch this stuff on Facebook and their language, and the parents are laughing. It's comical. It's dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. And my love of the music of today, I don't even consider it that. It's not music. It's not.
I want to get into your relationship with R. Kelly.
Okay.
You define your relationship with R. Kelly like a father and son relationship.
When did I define that? When did I say that?
It was like a long time ago. I did some research. It
Okay.
was like he threw a birthday party for you,
Yep.
and it
Yeah.
was like a father and son
Okay.
relationship.
Yeah.
You said in a radio interview a
Mm-hmm.
while back,
Mm-hmm.
R. Kelly have drawn the line, quote, R. Kelly have drawn the line with your relationship, and he lied to you
He
about,
crossed the line and he went after my daughter. And I'll leave it right there that we don't have to go deep.
okay.
Okay, because I've had all kinds of media contacts. Everybody wants me to talk about that. I have nothing to say. I don't want to add to it. He's going to get what he deserves. I'm sure this time. But I fell out with him because of that. And I'll leave it right there. I don't want to talk no more about it.
No, that's
Okay.
fine. That's
Good.
fine. That's
Good.
fine. Because
Hmm.
the other one was like, have you patched things up? So let's get back to what you said in regards to your beverage depot.
Yeah.
There's so much liquor, so many liquors that's out there.
Yeah.
How can you get your brand out there to other?
Well, it's called the same thing in the music business. It's called distribution. Once we have distribution, then you start the marketing. I mean, it's really the ABCs of a business, like any other product, like with music. Only way you're gonna know the music exists, you have to hear it, and that's part of marketing, and that's what we're gonna do. And all that's it. This is gonna come to pass very shortly. We're working on opening some other locations as well, so that's not going to be the only store.
Is the West Side included, or
Any part of the city that's logical.
yeah?
Mhm. I mean, that's not gonna open it next door to another liquor store. I mean, it's not, competition is good, but it has to be viable, and you do your marketing and you do your research. Just because a store is vacant doesn't mean it's profitable.
What you want people to remember George Daniels for? What would be your defining legacy?
Well, I haven't really put much thought to that. I'd have to save that for another interview. I'll do some research. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
You're talking
uh,
about me doing my research. Now you're going to do some research?
yeah. Well, I mean, it's not time for me to even talk about that yet. I'm still healthy and doing stuff. And I'll give you my obituary some other time.
Now you're going to point to Wonder to say, get this guy.
Hey, you hear this?
Have you ever considered writing an autobiography?
That's something I'm in negotiation with now.
That's an exclusive for us.
I'm in negotiations for who will be
Interested
the
in your
writer.
story.
Oh, a lot of people be interested in it, but it's who I want to write it. You know, I
What
get offers all the time, but I'm not interested in at at a particular time to make a commitment.
period?
Yeah, yeah. Everybody that writes ain't a good writer.
True.
I want somebody if it's done, it has to be authentic. It has to because I'm gonna open up. I mean, it's been a heck of a journey. These
But you're
40
saying
some
the
odd years.
journey is not over.
You're right. I says it's been a heck of a journey.
Mm.
It continues. I didn't say it's the end of the journey.
Go
You,
ahead.
yeah, no, you a wordsmith, and I am too.
What- You've been to the Grammys plenty of times.
Yes.
What stands out? A lot of people wants to know what stands out the most. That would be like, wow, I'm here. What was
Uh,
the like? I'm George Daniels
mm,
moment. I finally consider made it, even though you don't put yourself on a pedestal. What you said
yeah.
earlier.
Well, it's from the first time I ever went. That's when it was really exciting. But now it's an award show. You get a chance to see old friends. Uh, it's not as personal as it used to be, but it's it's fun. Bright lights, big city. You get to go to these parties, and it's it hasn't gotten old to me, but I still enjoy it. You
The
I'll be going. Hopefully, if everything goes right, to the BET Awards this month. There, I think the 23rd. And I usually go there as well.
What's the difference? The BET Awards presents itself as the Black Grammys now. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, not now. That's what it's always been. You have to look at the reason why Bob Johnson created BET. Do you know why he did that?
Why?
Because MTV wasn't playing black videos. And I know Bob. And just like Don Cornelius, he started Soul Train, which was started here in Chicago. A lot of folks don't know, in the Board of Trade building, WCIU. And he started that because Dick Clark had American Bandstand. And see, he was only on here about a year before he goes to California and tries to sell it as a national syndicated show. But it stayed on here every day after school. You saw Soul Train every day on WCIU. And it was on for 5 or 6 years. A guy who passed about 2 years ago, his name was Clinton Gent. He was the host of it. But it started here. That's why uh, I'm not very happy with that show, American Soul, which is a depiction of Soul Train. That is so out of line, and there's too many different storylines, and it's not accurate at all.
Why it's not accurate?
I mean, they made it look like, you know in Chicago we didn't dress like that. And if you really understood how the production worked, those kids used to go in LA to Soul Train for the tapings. They would bring three or four, five changes of clothes, and it was just, the Chicago, just we didn't dress like that.
They didn't do the kick and the high kicks or anything at the
No, we didn't know.
the girl
No.
with the doing
Yeah.
the hair
Well,
like this on the Soul Train line.
exactly. That was all. People. Of course, the only thing people pulled from it was the Soul Train line. But Chicago dudes, we didn't dress or dance like that. But but it caught on. I'm not knocking the show, but I'm not appreciating how, even when they talk about from the beginning of it, they made it look like it was created in Los Angeles. They give Chicago no mentions, basically.
Do you think Chicago, as an icon such as yourself, do you think Chicago has lost its black history, its staple? Because if you look at Oprah Winfrey Harpo Studio, it's gone.
Hmm.
What has she have to say? I was here. You talk about icon legacy, something that people can leave behind, and it's not there for other generations to see.
Yeah. But whether it's Oprah, anybody, time passes. Like I told you about Record Row, all those record labels that were on Michigan Avenue. How did the music industry leave? I mean, it's a cycle. You know, uh, when Johnson built the office building downtown, he was in an old mansion on the southwest corner, or yeah, southwest corner of 18th and Michigan. That's where Ebony Jet magazine was. That when they moved from there, that's when he built the office building. First African American to build an office building in downtown America anywhere. Johnson Publishing. And see, so one of the good things about that those eras, those of us who had a chance to experience it, being around it, to have it as an example and role models. It's a different time, different age. Where are our role models in the neighborhood? They're gone. I mean, just like I hate that I'm not on Roosevelt Road anymore. But it all started with like your Target department stores and so on, all these other places uh, uh, that just chop up the dollar. You know, now you got Amazon. People can get groceries and everything now the next day. Everything from Amazon. So
But it wasn't all about the mighty dollar to you. It was about the love
well,
and the appreciation,
well, I
community.
got that from my father. my dad. When you part, see, I've never considered myself that much of a businessman, but more of a merchant. And a merchant is part and parcel of the community. At one point, I lived over my store in Roosevelt. I was part of the neighborhood. At my peak, I had 15 full-time employees, and they all walked to work. I gave most their first jobs ever, and every one of them are doing quite well today. And I'm proud of the influence I had on them. Teaching them, I was like Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off. Oh yeah. Oh no, no. It would almost be about a year before you even got behind my counter. You were cleaning albums, you were cutting grass, you were doing everything, but you worked at George's. But there was a process. There was a process that I used, and it held me up for quite some time. And we were so proud when we wound up we've been Midway for almost 20 years. Yeah. See, so it's been a pretty cool journey. So
It's not over, as you say.
exactly. Yeah, the journey continues.
So mention your beverage depot
Yeah,
again.
George's Beverage Depot, 55th, right off the Dan Ryan in Chicago, South Side,
All
and
right.
formerly the Walgreens store. Okay, you
Okay.
guys come on by and check me out.
And we'll do some advertisement for you, courtesy of Earl Winfrey
I
and
appreciate that.
Wanda.
Hey.
Just give us the flyer. We'll post it up so you can advertise on our Black services, Black products,
Fantastic. I
and
appreciate
also your liquor, vodka.
Yes.
Don't be a stranger to the Drive at 5.
Not at
Hopefully,
all.
it took a long time for you to come.
Yeah, well, look, move closer to the city.
Well, that's going to do it for us on the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com. Thanks to Wanda, who is our executive producer, Earl, who's behind the scenes, coming up next week via phone, the one and only Stedman Graham. Coming up next week. Have a good week, everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.